Mr. Herman, I'll give you your warning now that you're already barking. And Mr. Herman, I'm giving you your warning now that you've already barked that any kind of disruption, you will be removed. So we have a quorum here with Mr. Harris Dawson and myself, and we are going to take item number 5 on consent without objection, and we're going to start with public comment. Mr. Herman?
How many minutes, sir?
Yes.
Councilman, how many minutes?
Just a minute for public comment. Please, you can start while Mr. Herman's just sitting there, not coming up.
Well, since the Jewish pig doesn't allow me to get up here because I have to hurry for that fat fuck, bald fat fuck, looking like Weezer now, tyrant. Under USC 42-121-31-121-34, Title II, Doris Sage in defendant of her son, the mental health motherfucker, versus the city of Winooski, Winooski. No agency, especially you dumb fucks, are not above the law. So fuck you, nigger Jew. Fuck all the nigger Jews who killed Jesus because you believe that your money and your fucking Jewish beliefs are better than Jesus Christ. In the name of Jesus Christ, fuck you, Paul Koretz, you fat motherfucker Jew, and all those other fucking Jews who killed an innocent man because of your religion and your belief. This is general public comment. Fuck you too.
There's no reason for this. Has nothing to do with our business.
I think that is
and it's certified hate speech.
All right. Any other public comment? I don't have any public comment cards, so public comment is closed. Item number 1.
Item 1, communication from the Mayor and City Ethics Commission report relative to the reappointment of Ms. Jamie Lee to the Los Angeles City Employees Retirement System Board for the term ending June 30th, 2022. This matter has been waived by the Budget and Finance Committee.
Welcome.
Good morning.
I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
Of course. I recently actually moved from Council District 5 to Council District 4 in the last year. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, attended USC for undergrad and law school. I have been a city commissioner on 3 different commissions since 2010, serving with Lacers since 2013. Or beginning of 2014, actually.
And let me ask you one question. So what's your perspective on the issues surrounding the anticipated rate of return by Lacers and other recent decisions that impact the city budget?
This is a national trend that we have been observing for over a year and a half now. California tends to lead the way, as we saw with recent decisions from CalPERS and CalSTRS, sort of setting an example of lowering their assumed rates of return. LAFPP has recently done so as well. It's scheduled on our board business for late July to review our economic assumptions and to see whether any change in that rate would be warranted. So the board is still open to hearing these. I
don't want to interrupt you, but Mr. Spindler, any more snorting, and we will ask you to depart. No animal noises, no shouting out, no wild gestures. Thank you.
So
Please
this
continue.
is an issue that we have been well aware of for a long time. It will be coming up in board business in about a month and a half. There are no decisions that have been made, of course. We'll have our actuarial consultant coming in to report on the economic assumptions for what they see on the national landscape and what they see as prudent actuarial practice moving forward.
And have you taken into account the fact that this has a very negative impact on the same employees that you cover as once they deal with their pensions?
It has an impact. I wouldn't say a very negative impact. It's one of the requirements, at least of the board, to use our fiduciary duty to make sure we ensure the long-term health of the plan. And these are based on numbers from multiple different advisors, consultants nationwide who are looking at a 10-year forward projection of about 6.5% investment returns across the board.
And what do they base that on, since we've never really had that experience in the past?
Yes, it is sort of impossible to actually precisely predict what will happen in the markets, but that's all of their economic assumptions, inflation, the way the stock markets could potentially work, and how all the other investment classes are performing.
Mr. Harris Dawson? Well, personally, I couldn't disagree with you more, and I think it's a terrible road that we are going down with our pension systems, and I think it's a wrong-headed approach that will cost our budget greatly where we need it. So I'm going to move that we advance this to council without recommendation. Any objection? Okay, so that'll be so ordered. This appointment will be moved to council without a recommendation. Thank you. And I've made an error, Mr. Herman. I did not hear in item number 1, but but you have multiple ones, so I'll group them together and include you on that. See who's who here. Mr. Herman, if you would like 2 minutes on your items. 1, 3, 6, and 2.
Regarding communication from the fucked up mayor and the City Ethics Commission regarding Ms. Jamie Lee. Yeah, there's going to be no retirement because there's just too many fucking settlements in the city nowadays that they can't even afford to pay Michael Hunt and Wayne Spiller to get the fuck out of City Hall. And then you go to item 2, City Administrative Officer, who the fuck he is. No one fucking cares for that fucking stupid supplemental agreement in contract number C11666. Oh, I'm sorry, I left out the 36. On what? Mercer Human Resource Service, LLC. Fuck the third party and fuck you on this item. Then I go to item number 3. Regarding the report relative to proposed First Amendment, there you go. First Amendment. That's why I'm here exercising it under 42 U.S.C. Title II ADA. Fuck you. And then I go on to state for the support and professional service, as I am suggesting, fuck you, for an investigated workers' compensation claims data management. I hope those fucking white niggers, attorneys, fuck you on all these worker compensations that you fucking harass, retaliate like Weezer and Englander, women on the job. Fuck you niggers. And then I go into item 666. Adopted budget. Recommendation relative to DAS to report regard what measures are taken to ensure pet license. Yeah, we all need pet license, even me. Woo, 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 because I'm a fucking dog. Woo, 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 woo. And in this sense, my license, I have to renew every year because of my mental health, like the rest of you mental health white fucking pasty Jews. So fuck you, Englander. Fuck you, Paul Koretz. Renewed license, report and include whether DAS can place a pet owners that have failed. Well, you know what? Tell Herb Weston to take his fucking dog business right up his dirty fucking stinky mouth and shove those cigarettes where marble silver belong. Woo! That was a lot of work.
Mr. Spindler?
How the hell did I do all that?
How did you do that? 2 fucking minutes. Pretty. Oh.
Mr.
Herman
Herman,
is
you're disrupting the meeting.
Mr. Chair.
Please escort him out. He's already been warned against disrupting the meeting.
Good.
Oh, you're saying I'm disrupting the meeting?
Yes.
I thought
Mr. Herman continues to disrupt.
well, you're learning the Queen's thing. Yeah. I mean, I just. Really? I didn't see you disrupting the meeting.
No, the motherfucker Chew up there is excited because he wants to see me leave.
Please escort him out. Thank you.
Continues to use hate speech as he's being escorted out.
Ask Trump.
Well, it's not hate speech.
AWA, niggers with attitude like you.
Yes, it is.
Okay, please start his time.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Thank you. And for the record, Mr. Herman continues to make goat noises. I'll make pig noises. Now turning to number one. The city employees retirement board is bankrupt. Fuck item number one. Because you stole $1.5 billion to paper over this year's budget. Here is criminal. Incorrect criminal, yes. Now number two. Let's read some more bullshit. This is the CAO, Mercer Human Resources. They're asking for too much money. I need a discount on this contract. Please discount it 20% or use a gift card from Staples like we do. Number three, Ventive Technology. I've never heard of this company. I've heard of Microsoft. I've heard of Adobe. Who the fuck is Ventive Technology? It's a dummy company. Don't pay dummy companies, even though you're dummies.
Well, you're a puppet.
Yes, all right.
Number 4, go ahead, stay on the topic.
Number 4, on amended professional agreement, more stealing. Am I on the topic, sir? Am I on the topic?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Attorney. I'm on the topic of the stealing of item number 4. Fuck number 4. Number 5. Fuck number 5. HCID. Fuck you. Number 6. Report. What report? Pet licenses? I don't need a pet license. Number 1, I'm a puppet, and number 2, my name's not Poker, it's a fucking puppet pig.
Well, you were on the topic.
Okay. Item number 2. Mr. Spindler is speaking out with distracting, funny voices and intending to disrupt the meeting. You're talking to a pig puppet. Still continuing to do it. Please escort him out.
Apologize.
Fuck you.
Apologize.
I'm sorry.
Too late now.
And we are joined by Councilmember Rue.
Item number 2, CAO report relative to proposed 5th supplemental agreement to contract number C-116636 with Mercer Human Resources Services for third-party administrative services for the City of Los Angeles Civilian Benefits Program to extend the contract term through December 31st, 2018.
Welcome.
Good morning. My name is Leah from the Office of the CAO. So to provide a short summary of what this contract is, it's an amendment to extend the term of the contract for an additional 19 months. And what this contractor provides is basically a third-party administrative services for the Civilian Benefits Program. The extension basically allows the city to be able to complete the RFP process. They're expecting the proposals to come in by the end of this month, and the 19-month period of time will allow them to be able to not just receive the proposals, but to review them and allow them to have like a more smooth transition with the new provider should that be required. So our office is recommending approval of this amendment.
Now, in August of 2014, we had the same thing brought to us, that the department needed a 3-year extension to make sure they had time to solicit proposals. So 3 years later, we're asked for another extension to solicit proposals in the same way. How do we get off this train and actually solicit proposals?
Yes. My name is Steven Montana. I'm the chief of the benefits division with the personnel department. So we administer this contract. We do recognize that this contract is one that is very important, and one that we do want to move the RFP process forward. We actually have released the RFP responses to that will be due by the end of the month. So we do anticipate that we will receive multiple responses to that, and then we will be in a position to make a selection. That process is in place.
How do we feel about Mercer's job to date? Have there been any major problems with them? Have they been reasonable to work with?
Yes, I mean, I think that I would say of all the divisions, I'm sorry, of all the contracts we administer within our division, this is the most complex. The requirements and sort of the intricacies that are involved with administering all of these multiple benefits and some of the different population characteristics that we have in terms of how we construct benefits. It's a very complicated program, and so they've worked with us to be able to manage that complexity. They've also assisted us with the compliance that we asked them to help us with regard to the Affordable Care Act. That was a major piece of work, in which essentially what they're doing is helping us to identify those who are to help us make sure that we're in compliance with the requirements of the ACA.
Any new policies or procedures that'll be in the next RFP?
Yes, we're looking for a number of enhancements. So consistent with a lot of the procurement work that we've been doing recently with our programs, we are looking for ways that we can make ourselves more efficient, that we can automate processes, and that we can bring out additional communications resources to help our members. So this has been a theme. It's consistent with what we did when we went out to bid on the healthcare contracts recently. The same thing is true with the change that we're making with the deferred compensation plan. So we're looking for those same kinds of enhancements: more efficiency, less paper, and better service to the participants.
Very good. Other comments or questions, members? So I would recommend that we approve the CAO's recommendation to authorize a 19-month extension, but I'd like to ask that you come back in 6 months with a progress report so we can make sure this doesn't somehow go the way of the previous extension.
Of course, understood. Happy to.
Thank you. So we will move that without objection. Item number 3.
Item 3, CAO report relative to proposed first amended and restated agreement to contract number C-120638 with Ventive Technology to provide software licenses, maintenance, and support professional services for an integrated workers' compensation claims data management system.
Good morning, Leah Chu again from CAO. And so this amendment is for, it's a 5-year extension to the current 5-year term, which extends this contract for a total of 10 years. Expiring June 29th, 2022. We're increasing the contract ceiling by an additional $3.3 million for a total of $6.3 million for the contract's 10-year term. And the scope of work was initially for just software licenses, maintenance, support services for the city's IVOS system. And so this is the system in which the city's workers' compensation claims data are housed and managed. And what we're trying to do is we're also expanding the scope of this agreement to include IP blocking and also an as-needed account manager services. We are recommending approval of this amendment.
So did we set up any metrics or standards for this contract? And if so, how'd they do? And if not, how'd they do?
This has been an extremely beneficial partnership with Ventive. With the reform of metrics, we implemented the system on time and on budget. It was about an 18-month implementation period. The implementation included basically converting over 300,000 claims and its data to the system. It transitioned over $3 billion worth of financial transactions to the new system from our legacy system that was over 35 years old. That transition of those financials balanced to the penny. So I would say that was very successful. We also transitioned over 1.4 million images from our old document image system to the new claim system. It also integrated 3 prior legacy systems, which was our workers' comp claim system, also our document image system, and the city attorney's litigation system. So we went to one consolidated system. The partnership's been very, very beneficial. It's performed to the contract standards that were in there, and we look forward to this continued partnership with Ventive for an additional 5 years.
Now, obviously, a lot of these systems update very quickly. The fact that we're extending this for 5 years and it'll be 10 years old at the end, is that a problem for us, or do things get updated if new IT breakthroughs occur? How's that work?
Absolutely. We're actually going on our second upgrade of the iBoss system. So they are staying on top of things. They are adding new features to it. So in the scope of things, if you look at our old system, it was 35 years old. And, you know, to replace a system like this and then look at replacing it before you basically recoup the cost of that transition, it's probably not beneficial for the city. But after these 5 years, we will go out to RFP to see if a new system is appropriate.
But this system, as it ages, you believe will be updated enough to be beneficial to us?
Absolutely. It is an industry-leading workers' comp claim system. Absolutely.
Okay. Other questions or comments on this? If not, I'd suggest we approve the CAO's recommendations without objection.
Thank you.
And that will be so ordered. Item number 4.
Item 4, CAO report relative to proposed second restated and amended professional services agreement with governmentjobs.com, DBA NeoGov, to provide online services for recruitment, selection, and applicant tracking in an amount not to exceed $1,552,750,000 and a term from June 5th, 2008 through May 31st, 2018.
Good morning, Leah from the Office of the CAO.
Good morning.
So what we're trying to do with this amendment is we're just trying to amend the scope of work to include the customization of something called the computer-based testing component. And what it will do is it will allow the city to be able to administer multiple choice tests on an online setting. This amendment will come at a cost of an additional $130,000 to the value of the contract, and that's broken down by $50,000 of a one-time cost and an additional $40,000 annual licensing cost. This contract there's only 2 years left to this contract, and so out of the 10-year term of this agreement. And so we're recommending approval of this contract.
And when would the online testing start?
Tina Rodriguez, Chief of Selection Division Personnel Department. The online testing will start as soon as we test the system. We haven't gotten it yet, but we have done other work outside of the system to different free systems that are available online, and also using one of our vendors to test online testing, but we don't have it ourselves. So as soon as we get it, we will do some testing, and hopefully by early next fiscal year, we would be able to run online testing ourselves.
Very good. And I know in the budget process, Councilmember Engelmander had some concerns about using this for sworn personnel. What have you done to address that, if anything?
We are not, he wanted to do it for sworn or not? I'm not clear. He didn't want it. No, this would be for civilian testing.
So it would only be for civilian testing? Okay. Any other questions, comments? If not, I'd move forward the CAO's recommendations without objection. Thank you. Item 6.
Item 6, adopted budget recommendation relative to instructing the Department of Animal Services to report in regard to what measures are taken to ensure pet licenses are renewed, with said report to include whether the Department of Animal Services can place pet owners that have failed to renew pet licenses on lists for improved enforcement, including the Administrative Citation Enforcement Program.
Good morning. Dana Brown, Assistant General Manager, Animal Services, and I have with me one of our Directors of Field Operations, Mark Salazar, as well as Lieutenant Annette Ramirez from the Administration Section. So before you today, we have a response back from a budget recommendation. During our budget hearings, we had a public comment that was critical of the department's current renewal system and how it is that we notify people of their responsibility to renew and our follow-up procedures. So the Budget and Finance Committee asked us to basically look into, what it is we do now and find out whether or not we can incorporate the administrative citation program into our renewal program. So we went back and we just to give you some framework, what we do now is about 60 days before a license expires, we send a system-generated notice to the pet owner, letting them know that their renewal is up for payment. They can either send it back to us in the mail, or they can go online and use our renewal system, or they can come into a shelter to renew their license. If they don't respond to our email, to our system-generated mail, we 60 days after it's due, meaning 60 days late, we contact them again. And then after that, if they don't respond again, we don't try to get in touch with them again until the rabies certificate is expired. So we looked into other municipalities before actually we talked to the city attorney. We looked to see what other people were doing. And there are definitely municipalities who use their administrative citation program right on the front. They send citations as soon as you're late. In fact, even before you're late, they tell you if you don't pay this on time, you're going to have to pay this fee. When we took this back to the city attorney, they were not convinced that this was a legal practice in the state of California. Certainly within this city, our ordinance requires personal service first. But even as it relates to changing the ordinance to not require personal service, there's still some confusion about whether or not that is even legal for the state of California. So what we have recommended is that in an attempt to try to use the ordinance the way it's currently written, that we start using citation warnings with our renewal process. So on the first notification to the pet owner, we would also send a citation warning, hopefully to motivate those people who are interested in being responsive, but just for one reason or another do not. Maybe this will be extra motivation so that they are not levied a citation after that. So we can do that right away, and then after that we recommend that we're instructed to work with the city attorney to try to iron out whatever concerns there are about using the ACE program more aggressively and making sure that the city of Los Angeles is in line with the state law.
Now we I believe only have 25-30% of our dogs licensed. Do you know what the exact percentage is?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what the percentage is because it's kind of difficult to get the numbers because of the it all depends on how many people say that they actually own animals. So we usually err on the side of even the people who tell us they don't own animals will still go ahead and count that with that low number. But as it relates to people who say they actually own animals, the percentage is higher than that.
What's the percentage of people that say they own the animal?
Well, I don't have them in front of me, but I have looked at those things before. So we err on the side of you own the animal even if you say you don't, which would bring the percentage of actual licensed owners down. But nevertheless, we're actually dealing with licensing in two phases. One is trying to increase licensing overall, not necessarily renewals, but what you're speaking of, which are people who have animals that need to be licensed. And then the renewal piece is a different issue and probably a little more easy to address because these are people who have been responsible before with licensing their animals. So we're kind of dealing with them separately, trying to raise overall licensing of animals that have never been licensed on the one hand, and then trying to make sure that our renewals stay up on the other hand.
So what are impediments to the first-time licensing? And have we looked at what other cities do that we doubt that could be instructive?
Absolutely. So what we have found from our strategic plan process is that people simply don't know that they have to license their animals. So we are looking at trying to do more marketing where that's concerned. We are also trying to work with our contractors, the veterinarians that have contracts with us, having them help us with the enforcement piece. Offering licenses in their offices. We do have, the code does allow for them to sell licenses with making a profit, actually. So we are trying to encourage them to help us in that regard. There is some concern on the part of the veterinarian community about getting into the business of enforcement. They want to more, be helpful to their client than to sort of police, if you will, for the government, is how they see it. Nevertheless, we're trying to work through those things, trying to show how licensing your animal is a win for you and the animal, and, different campaigns to try to appeal to pet owners about licensing.
And we could even produce a flyer and ask vets that participate in this to put it up so they can market it to people that are just hanging around in their lobby with their animal.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Do
And
but
there
read
are
the
some,
stuff.
and there are some vets who do that for us. Certainly, some of our partners, the larger vet clinics that are our partners, they actually sell the licenses right there in their offices. So, and in fact, we have in the more recent contracts, we are strengthening the language about licensing to not necessarily force them to sell licenses, but to make it, stronger language that they try to help us license all of their clients that are city residents.
And I know for a while, I think we had a policy of accepting cash when the canvassers went in the community. And we changed that, which obviously makes it much more difficult, some communities more than others, to actually get the licenses. Why did we do that, and how could we move back in that direction so we can get more licenses?
If I recall correctly, I believe that was in concern with the Controller's Office over an audit issue we had maybe upwards of 5 years ago. And that was a finding that came back that tracking and collecting cash in the field was a concern. So we since then have automated credit card machines, and we've provided those to our officers and to our field canvassers so that somebody could debit card or credit card instead of collect cash in the field. The way that we encourage that the person that doesn't have any means other than cash to license their animal is a licensed canvasser, or even an animal control officer could leave them with an administrative citation, give them 30 days to come into a shelter, pay the cash, license the animal, and then we send them their licensing.
So we're doing that now?
Yes, sir.
So presumably it's a fix-it ticket type citation, so they wouldn't actually have to pay it.
Absolutely. 90% of our administrative citations are fix-it tickets. That's how they work. It's a great way of just coming alongside the community and encouraging that we gain compliance, yet we don't penalize people unknowingly.
Great. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Rue?
One quick question. Has the department considered options for like a multi-year pet renewal?
Yes, we do have a 3-year pet renewal option that some pet owners certainly take advantage of. We've been talking about sort of promotions, whereby we go into the community and maybe offer discounted licensing if, in fact, you buy multi-year licenses. But there are, of course, some concerns with that in terms of waiving any fees, any city levied fees, and making sure that those fees are able to be reimbursed from an appropriate source, or the city council allows us to waive. So certainly especially with the homeless community and some of the services that we are providing to the homeless community over the last year or so, this question has come up largely. A number of them are unable to pay, and we are trying to find creative ways to license their animals and take care of the pay. So
we have multi-year but no discounts. So
we do have discounts, but they're for senior. We have a disability, those types of discounts, but we don't have a low-income license discount.
So like for a dog, dog is $20 a year, so you could buy it for 3 years, so we have to pay $60.
No, there is a discount associated with 3 years. Yes, okay. I think it's $55.
Oh, okay. Let me go back to the cash idea, because I was thinking of encouraging the department, or possibly even doing a motion instructing the department to start taking cash again. What percentage of your ACE citations for non-licensing do you think are actually collected and I mean are brought into compliance?
Just to clarify, you're asking the number of people that you think would pay cash. What kind of a percentage might that be?
Yeah, I'm looking at if we give them a citation because they only can pay cash, and how many of them actually come into the animal shelters and pay?
We gain a great amount of them. I would say most of them come into the shelter. I'll let Lieutenant Ramirez maybe answer a little bit there and on the cash part of this too, because she oversees our field canvassers. But just so that you know, if a person doesn't comply with their administrative citation, they will get visited and get a second level citation. So they want to avoid that. So they usually come in because, one, it doesn't cost them anything in a fine to license their animal if they come in within the required period. But they also see on the citation what the escalating fines will be if they don't. So we tend to find that we have most of our citations complied with. And what's great about that program, too, if I can just add, is we send very few citations to the city attorney's office for processing, because we allow this compliance time period for people to come in and get their licenses renewed.
So one of the problems with collecting licensing out in the field is that oftentimes people don't have all the required documentation that goes together with a discounted license. So if they cannot provide proof of a current rabies vaccination or proof of sterility, they would actually need to pay for a $100 intact license, as well as potentially a breeder's permit for an additional $235. So what we do is, when the person's unable to provide that documentation at the door, they do get a warning citation allowing them 30 days to get their documentation together, or to actually get their pet sterilized, because a lot of times people's pets aren't sterilized. So we provide them the resources and the information of the different organizations that service their area to get those sterilities done for their pets, which allows them then to go into the shelter at least 30 days later to obtain their license for the discounted $20. So the cash collection in the field really isn't that huge of an impact on the unit, because there's a lot of other documentation that needs to be provided to us prior to us being able to collect that license.
What do we do, just out of curiosity, if a sterilized animal doesn't have documentation?
The owner can actually, if they don't have their documentation showing that the animal is sterilized, what they can do is request the documentation from their veterinarian, just get a new certificate of sterility, or they can make an appointment with any private veterinarian that didn't perform the sterility, and they can examine the animal and give them a documentation, which is actually a certificate of sterility stating that they didn't perform the surgery, but that they have examined the animal and they have determined that it has been surgically sterilized.
And what do you do with homeless people that pick up a dog on the street, might be sterilized, might not be? They certainly don't have the money to do any of these things.
So our Pet Resources Center that we have set up through our partnership with Downtown Dog Rescue and Inner City Law, we have been really funneling people to that location, because they are I mean, they are making an enormous impact on that community. So if we have knowledge of a homeless person who is a pet owner who needs resources, we certainly would send them to that location, and then that location would do what needs to be done. So if the animal then was not sterilized, then we would provide them with whatever they needed to have the animal sterilized. And in fact, at that particular outfit, they're even helping with licensing over there. So we're looking forward to having more of these kind of centers open. And I think that when we initially opened up this Pet Resources Center, it seemed like an easy enough thing to do in other districts if in fact somebody wanted to do it. But as we sort of looked into that, the effort that is made by those two organizations is unbelievable, and so what happens is that some of the other districts who initially wanted to do that thing ended up doing something different, something that more fit their neighborhood or more fit their resources. So as a result, more and more people, depending upon the need, how much service they need, have been funneled over to that Skid Row location and have been, given the resources over there.
So you have a homeless person wandering around my district. They're probably not going to get downtown to Skid Row. What else can they do?
Well, if they call us and we're not able, like if he's like, well, I can't get over there and I can't get over there on Monday or on Wednesday when it's open, then I would call, actually in your district, we do have some resources over there. So I would call the outreach center over there and just see, how we can creatively address that particular problem. I mean, sometimes we have to do it sort of on a case-by-case basis. I mean, we've had some problems, for example, at a library where, we had to be very creative about how we addressed it because the person wasn't able to, get where they needed to go and these sorts of things. So we just sort of take them as they come and provide the resources as we can.
And what were the problems with cash? How did that not work? What did they find in the audit that was problematic?
Well, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think it was just accountability. I think the way the receipts were being done and the way that the cash was actually transitioning through the system. But again, it's been a while, so I'm a little sketchy on that. We could get information and get that back to your office.
I mean, because the question is, were there impediments that could be worked through, and is it worth the effort?
Hearing from the field officers and the canvassers, I think they would appreciate being able to collect the cash in the field. I think they do run into times where people do have the paperwork and would like to pay then, but they just don't have the means other than cash. So it may certainly be something worth pursuing.
Also, if we have the means to take cash in the field, it may also motivate whoever starts the process. So, like as Lieutenant Ramirez said, you may not have all of the necessary documentation for me to actually issue the license. But if you are able to give me the money, you may be more motivated to get the rest of the information so that you can actually be licensed because you've now invested financially into this process.
So I wonder if we could ask you to come back with a little bit of an analysis on this issue, what the pros and cons are of going back to accepting cash. Because it seems like that would increase our numbers, but I think we'd also want to look at the difficulties that led to suspending that policy in the first place. So what's a reasonable amount of time? 30 days, 60 days to come back?
I don't think it should take more than 30 days. 30 days is reasonable.
Okay, so why don't we ask you to come back to the first meeting after our break?
Just to address this portion?
Just to address that one issue. And I think, I guess we'll just hold this item in committee, but I think that's the only issue I think that's probably outstanding right now.
Absolutely. Okay.
So I thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your good work on this. Item 7.
Item 7, adopted budget recommendation relative to instructing the Personnel Department to report on specific implementation benchmarks, and hiring goals for the targeted local hiring and strategic workforce development task force.
Welcome, Ms. Goldberg, our former council member.
Good morning, all. Nice to see all of you.
Good morning.
Mr. Chairman, members. My name is Jackie Goldberg. I'm working on a contract with the mayor's office to try to make this targeted local hiring program work out as we all had hoped it would. And so we have a report today a little bit about what our implementation has been and how it's working and where we are and what's left to do and on and on and on. Basically, the goals of the program, of course, were to hire 5,000 civilian employees by the end of the 2017-18 fiscal year, and to include targeted local hires in that number. So here's where we are. We began the actual implementation of the targeted local hire program in January of this year, 2017. Then we began literally a phase-in test launch of the program. So we have our 6 applicant centers, which are work source centers and geographically located throughout the city. And we began doing work with the various, you've seen the list, community-based organizations, inviting them, if they choose to be, organizations that are called, what's that name?
Referral agencies.
Referral agencies, thank you. See, this is why we got people here who work on this for real, as opposed to those of us who do what we can do. But the referral agencies have been coming for meetings with us because our goal has been from the beginning to involve as many community-based organizations as possible, since they are already working with the targeted population. Why invent something new when they're already out there? On the other hand, many of them are not able, because of their resources, to actually provide the kind of program materials we would like people to do. So the LAUSD has worked with us, and they have started a boot camp, which they are sending these things out to high schools. They're sending them out to all of the adult and career education centers. If you get a referral from one of the any of the agencies, whether they are referral agencies or not, anybody that we've met with, if they get a referral from that, this is a 20-hour program which is free. And that means what they get are soft skills, the customer service skills, problem solving, conflict resolution, teamwork, job interview, and so forth. That's part of our program to say to community-based organizations, some of you are already doing this. Don't send them there. Do it yourself. Refer them. Get them into the applicant pool, and we're fine. But let's say you're an agency that doesn't have those resources. Well, now we've provided a route for them to get that. We are also, and there are lots of places where you can do this. Even if you go in without a referral, you just stumble on it, LAUSD will only charge a person whatever their adult ed registration fee is. And some campuses charge $5 or $10 or $15. Some don't charge anything. But if you come from any agency that has sent a referral, it's absolutely free, including the registration. We have, as of the end of May, received 1,435 applications since our launch in February of this year. 60 candidates have been offered jobs. 28 vacancies are in the process of potentially being filled by target local hire departments. And here's the breakdown. Of the 1,435 applicants, 1,319 are from our targeted group. Remember, we said at the beginning we couldn't make it 100% targeted because we couldn't tell someone who happened to live in Inglewood you could never get hired in Los Angeles, but they are in Tier 2, which means they have a smaller chance, a 20% chance of getting randomly selected instead of an 80% chance of being randomly selected. The rankings so far are about 62% of the people are in a local zip code, and that was how they got to be targeted. That is in the PLA list of LA city zip codes that have twice the county average of unemployment and poverty. Individuals over 40 is our next highest group. That's about 40% of the applicants are in that category. And you'll say to yourself, gee, that's more than 100%. Yes, because you can be in more than one category. About 26% are formerly homeless. About 12.5% are formerly incarcerated. The disabled make up about 7%. Former gang members about 5%. Veterans about 5%. Disconnected and foster youth about 2.6%, and at transgender we have, I believe, about 0.5%. The departments that have made job offers to candidates as of the end of May, now remember some happened in June, but at the end of May, Airports has hired 40. They are the big good guys in this process, and they have hired both clerical as well as custodial folks. The CLA's office, 2, the fire and police pensions, 1, HCID, 2, Lacers, 4, office finance, 3, personnel, 2, planning, 1, rec and parks, 5. Departments with active requests to be filled, the airport wants 2 more. GSD has 3 vacancies to fill, personnel 4, Public Works Con Ed to fill 2, Public Works Street Lighting maybe 2, DOT to fill up to 13 vacancies, the zoo to fill up to 2 weeks, and we've also in recent weeks received requests from the library and the controller's office. We have right now 38 approved referral agencies, which also now include all 17 workforce centers. The average satisfaction score that departments have given after they've hired these people is a 4.2 out of 5, which we think is pretty good, pretty good. Right. Monthly meetings with application sites still go on because we want to make sure that regardless of which of the 6 application sites you go to, you get the same answer. So we work very much on what does it mean to say a person is ready to work under our program, which is the only criteria besides being able to legally work in the United States that is required to be into this program. We will be adding 3 new application centers because some of them are getting a little overwhelmed. We're going to add another one in the Valley. We're going to add another one in the South LA area. And the third one we're adding is in Hollywood. Yeah, that's been a big group as well. And so we'll continue to conduct sessions with referral agencies, hires, managers, and supervisors. The new application sites are Res Karen Canoga Park, Vernon Central LATTC, and MCS Hollywood. Basically, the program is doing outstandingly well. I'm happy to report. However, we have very few openings still. We still have, unfortunately, some departments who are using as needed and contract workers. We would hope that some of them would be encouraged to say, this is the time, we've got an applicant pool ready to go. This is the time, perhaps, to put aside using as needed or using contract workers for jobs that are really here for good. And particularly, we're hoping to work more with Public Works. We had a terrific meeting the other day with one of the departments there, and they've now decided that they understand the program better, and they're now thinking about as many as 30 or 33 job openings that they have. But mostly what we could use, obviously, from the council is any encouragement you can give to general managers to see this as a plus for the city. It reduces homelessness. It reduces the opportunity for people to be living in abject poverty. It opens them up to having access to a middle-class career with promotional opportunities and retirement benefits. So this basically all we need are jobs. If there are openings, we have plenty of people to fill them. We do not yet have entirely a big public launch. And the reason we haven't done that yet is because, A, we're still working out some of the kinks in the system. We want that to be done. But also we have another little problem, which is as if you have 1,500 applicants already in the system and you've got 28 openings, you got very small chance of even getting interviewed, much less getting hired. So without more openings, we feel it would be counterproductive to the applicants to open this up widely with a big public launch, because what we'll do is set up people to be waiting forever to get an interview that may never come. So really, our program gets bigger and bigger if there are openings. If there aren't openings, it'll be a little drop in the bucket. I mean, that's true. I have to just continue to say that the Personnel Department, the CAO and the CLA's offices, the coalition of unions have all worked extremely well together in trying to make this a smooth and seamless process for an applicant. The problem is we just still don't have very many openings.
Well, it sounds like you've done a fine job in terms of qualifying the people. The question is, why do we have so few job openings? And I don't know if part of it is it's cheaper to deal with contract workers and as needed, and hiring part-time people when you really need full-time, and some of the sort of tricks that we've used that we really shouldn't have been using and shouldn't be using?
Well, we felt that as we looked at this, that a lot of it happened to do with the Great Recession. Okay, we understand that. There are times when you do things that you don't normally do. Okay, that's over. Time to come home. Our view, anyway, is that these should be city workers. Not all of them. There are always going to be some as-needed positions because things go up and down. But we have, in some departments, secured funding for positions that we don't know exactly why managers, general managers, are not yet going to this shelf. But we see positive responses from the people who are hiring, and we believe that will at least help, as general managers tend to talk to each other, help them see that these are people that not only are qualified, but you know, the kind of enthusiasm you get from someone who's an opportunity that they've never had before is something we don't always see. I know that anecdotally out at the airport we hear that the hires are just burning up the place because they are so anxious to show that they're meritorious of keeping and keeping this job, that they're just going crazy, working time that they aren't required to work, doing things that are not asked to do. You know, I mean, it's been really an outstanding thing. That's why the airport keeps hiring them, because they're enthused by the response, the human response, not just the technical job skills that these folks are bringing. We're hoping to spread that word widely so that eventually we end up with a lot more departments saying, well, we don't need contract workers. We don't need as many as needed. We can make these people city employees.
Is there a way to have us work at marketing that internally to our departments?
Well, obviously, general managers send representatives to committees. It could be a question that committee members could ask in whatever committee they're on about how they're doing on this or what their plans are for doing this. I mean, I think encouragement rather than orders are critical, but encouragement will really help. If they feel that the council, this is my opinion as a former city council member, if general managers feel that council members have their back, if, you know, this didn't work out in one case or something like that, that nobody's going to criticize them and say how terrible. You know, if they feel like you're encouraging it, this is something you'd like to see happen, we think it'll encourage more general managers to do this as well.
Very good. Other comments?
Yes.
Mr. Rue.
Thank you, Council Member, for your tremendous work. 1,435 applicants, that's great. From that, I mean, were there any rejections? Are they all qualified? Are they all ready to go?
You don't get to apply unless the application center has some way of saying you are job ready. Okay? Now, that can come from the referral agencies or it can come from them themselves. Okay? We have been doing training sessions at the personnel department with the referral agencies and the work source centers so that they know what we mean when we say worker ready. And it's, you know, it's subjective, unfortunately, but fortunately, knock on wood, their subjective decisions have proved to departments that they're ready. Because basically what we're looking for is for them to say, yes, we've worked with this person or we've gotten a referral from a referral agency that's worked with this person, and they do come on time. And they know they have to be there every day. And they know you don't leave at lunch and don't come back. And they know how to ask questions without having someone, without being insulting, and they know how to take direction from somebody who is training them. Those are the skills that we're looking for. When they go to a application center, there are various ways they can demonstrate that. One new one is they could go to the 20-hour class for free at any of the, not any, but many of the adult ed centers throughout the city. The other way to do that is that many of the referral agencies have their own job preparation programs. So when they send their referral to the application center, they've said, here's what we've done, this person's ready. We don't do anything more than that. We just have them fill out the application and they're in.
So for the most part, they're ready to go.
They're ready. All of these people are ready to go.
Could I ask personnel a couple of questions? Personnel, okay. By 2018, 46% of our city's workforce is eligible for retirement. That's correct, right?
Correct.
Do we have, I know we have a breakdown, I've seen it before, of all the vacancies from all the departments. We have that information, right?
So we have, this is a Vince Cordell Personnel Department. We do have a breakdown of vacancies that we report back as part of a subcommittee of our pilot departments in terms of classifications that we're trying to fill here. So we update that on a quarterly basis.
What is our vacancies right now, roughly?
It was roughly over 100.
Over 100.
In those pilot departments.
Only in the pilot department?
Yeah.
Correct.
And as I read the list, you can see that we had many departments that weren't pilot departments that have hired.
Also, so you're only reaching out to the pilot departments?
No, actually,
Everyone.
we're not. We're
Yeah.
reaching out to, actually, we have made a list of departments and our outreach committee of the work group,
Right.
which includes Teresa Sanchez from the Coalition of Unions, and Vincent and I have been making appointments proactively because we think that some general managers and HR people in departments are not quite sure how this exactly works, even though they've seen it. You know, it takes a while to absorb a new way of doing things. So we're trying to reach out to them and show them what we think are the advantages.
So we do have the vacancy list, and we also and I also remember seeing projections from the personnel department about which departments are going to be more affected by potential retirements.
Right, and that was based on last year's LACERS data.
Right. So, and I guess, Councilmember Goldberg, are you using that data to target those departments?
We are, but the data is...
Snapshot in time.
It's a snapshot in time. Thank you. I'm looking for the way to say it. The data is not great. I think it would be helpful if departments would monthly let personnel know approximately how many openings they have in the 6 job categories that we have. There's nothing now that requires them to do that. That would be a useful thing. What we get is something that is a snapshot at a moment in time, and it may not reflect nearly what really is going on. And so we have a subcommittee that's trying to determine what the openings are.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very difficult right now. We don't get monthly information from departments.
Yeah, because my question was going to be, how close are we of reaching our goal of hiring 5,000 people by 2018? That's kind of a moot question based on your presentation. It seems like the recruitment phase, you're doing exceptionally well, and we're somewhat on track. And opening up of 3 new centers, I mean, you could do a public launch, and we could probably easily get 5,000 applicants, if not more.
Without a doubt, it would be people would line up around the corner.
It would be a little bit insane under the circumstances.
Well, that's why we haven't done it. You know.
Yeah, but the problem would be exactly as you pointed out. You filled 60 and potentially 28 other vacancies coming out, and I am open to your monthly report. I'm sure we're going to do a motion on that as well to try to get the departments to do a monthly report on their vacancies. But is there any other?
Well, we're waiting I think there was at the end of the budget hearing a motion to get information back from all the departments, wasn't there, on vacancies? So we're waiting. That report was supposed to come back in 30 days after you pass the budget. So we got our fingers crossed that it's going to have a lot of detail in it and that it will help us target which departments for us to make visits to help them understand the process better.
Okay. Any other ideas or suggestions how we could get the departments to offer up more of the vacancies, or
I think the only thing is to see where we can look at ending at the end of a contract out of work that fits in these positions, to say don't renew it or compare the price of it to what it would be if you hired from the targeted local hiring group. I think anything that encourages folks to move away from as-needed and contract positions, I think is where our growth is, because those tend to be those positions that don't require a lot of formal training. So if you're going to be using people that you're sort of training anyway that are from contract workers, why not train people and make them city employees? I think that to me is the unexplored area, is to get to that point. We're also taking a look at whether or not there are other positions we should add to the targeted local hiring group, and so we have a subcommittee working on that, which will be reporting back in the July meeting or the September meeting.
Can you elaborate on that, other targeted positions?
Well, we're trying to say, besides these 6, are there other positions which you could train on the job for, or which might need only a little bit of other training, maybe a computer course?
What are the 6 right now?
We have tree surgeon assistant, custodian, garage attendant, admin clerk. We also have maintenance laborer.
Maintenance assistant, garage assistant, custodial service assistant, assistant tree surgeon, assistant gardener, and of course the office trainee.
And you're working with the CLA and the CAO as well in this workshop,
Yes,
right?
oh yes, they're part of the working group.
You know, I think that's, I didn't realize that part. Yeah, if you could expand that pool, because I was going to say, if you could target street services and sanitation, and in particular, like our medians, that's part custodial, but not, it's in the outside environment, not inside. But we've been trying to contract out for our medians, and I know Councilmember Correct, I mean, we're all having this problem.
Oh, it's terrible.
And we actually, and the department actually did contract it out, but the contractor showed up, saw how much work it was, and just quit on the job.
Yep.
So,
Well, this would be a perfect place.
yeah, and
We have people ready and willing to learn how to do that.
And I know we even use discretionary funds, and it was not just my office, but all council offices, where we promised our communities that we're going to get these medians cleaned, and we just have nobody to clean them, and it's just been, I think it took 6 months to hire that contractor.
And the money's there.
Yeah.
I can
So-
assure you without hesitation that we have enough people to fill all of your positions that you would open.
And we've even had the worst possible experiences, like people printing up professional signs that look like they're from us with a city seal, saying that we couldn't maintain our medians because this money is going to help illegal aliens, quote unquote, not be removed by President Trump.
Oh my goodness.
Needless to say, we removed those signs pretty quickly, but it is rather embarrassing.
So what can we do to help you expand that list of the jobs?
If there were to be some hearing or discussion with those folks, we'll certainly put it on our list to meet with them right away to encourage them. But basically, they always ask us the same 2 questions when we meet with them. Is there an authority for the position, and is there funding for the position? So if there's position authority and funding, we have the people to fill them.
Mm-hmm.
And if we didn't have enough in that category, I assure you we would open up our recruitment and we would get them in literally days.
So, Mr. Chair, I mean, I'm sure the monthly reporting thing about vacancies, that's something we could possibly ask for in a motion, but.
I'm trying to remember if that was, I think.
It's already been done.
Yeah.
It's already done?
It's already been asked for.
I mean, Mr. Chair, that's my first question. So I remember we had a process where we were supposed to get reports from departments, and very few of the departments actually responded. And I just never knew if I'm trying to recall if that problem ever got buttoned up, where we actually got reports from every department.
Well, again, we get a snapshot, but we don't get monthly reports of openings in these 6 areas at all.
Do we need to specifically do a motion on that, or?
So do we know where? there's the motion, which I could read so everybody knows what we're talking about. I move that the Budget and Finance Committee report on the mayor's proposed budget for 2017-2018 be amended to instruct all city departments, bureaus, and offices to report within 30 days to the Budget and Finance Committee and Personnel and Animal Welfare Committee with the following information. To assist the work of the Targeted Local Hiring Working Group and the Strategic Workforce Development Task Force. 1, a list of all department vacancies, both funded and unfunded, showing the job title and funding source for each. 2, a list of all as-needed positions, including the job title, number of positions, and funding sources. 3, a list of all contracts for services, including dollar amount and contract's expiration level for which entry-level civil service positions could otherwise provide the services.
So that's the report after the budget is passed in 30 days from there, right?
That's from last year.
No, I think this is for this year.
I think it was for this year. I think it was
For the
this year.
It's relating to the proposed 2017-2018 budget.
For us, that would be very helpful. And then in addition to which, any encouragement that various committees could give to people who have as needed and contracted positions to say, look, we have this MOU that says by the end of this year we're supposed to hire a lot of people that we haven't hired yet. And by the way, it's faster, it's cheaper. I mean, if you remember the tree services debacle when we found out what it cost to trim a tree when we contracted it out, oh, you might phase me.
But I think we're
Mercury or something like that.
We're still contracting a lot of that tree trimming, which
and
makes
there's
no
really
sense.
no need to do that, is what I'm trying to say.
So that report, I guess it will report back to us since the budget's passed now, I guess probably after recess.
Yes, it certainly will never happen before recess. But I think we should be nudging them to make sure that it occurs shortly thereafter. I think another decent suggestion might be if maybe Herb Wesson as council president and I as personnel and animal welfare chair send a letter to the departments encouraging them to take advantage of the program. And perhaps a follow-up if things continue to maintain a slow pace from the mayor's office as well. I think that might be a good two-step process to give them a little nudge.
Maybe if they could come back in 90 days, because we have recess and then we have the report probably coming back to the letter and all of that, and we could see if any of this has been effective in about 90 days. That's okay with the chair.
That sounds perfect.
We'll be happy to do that, of course.
And otherwise, we will receive and file this report without objection. Oh, please.
Thank you. So thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Rue. I think you covered a lot of ground that I wanted to cover. This report, on the one hand, is very, very exciting. I have to say we actually are getting off the ground with making progress. At the same time, I have to say it's a bit disappointing, given the scale. I mean, it's no way you get to 5,000 or anywhere approximating that, or even 1,100, or anywhere approximating that at the pace that we're currently going. So we need to speed it up. I do, for the record, want to say that we did put forward a motion when I first got on council to ask for that same information that we're now saying we're going to get in 90 days. And I remember, Councilwoman, you sat there and said, out of all your departments, these are the only ones who responded. And the onus was kind of on us to figure out how to get responses from everybody. So I think we need to double down on that and actually carry out our responsibility to get that information to the report. I guess one of the questions I have, do we know the proportion of all new hires and new hires that are in this category? Or another way, a narrow way of asking the question would be, of those category of workers, of new hires, how many of them came out of this program, and how many of them just kind of came out of other processes? Do we know that?
I think that's a better way to do it,
Yeah.
because obviously, if there's a department head, they're not going to get hired out of
right.
this process. So it's got to be apples to apples.
Yeah, so, we have those 60 hires, and in terms of new hires, in terms of since the beginning of last fiscal year, so 2015 to now, we have 3,949 new enrollees to the benefit system. So that has been our best way to track the data. So 60 have received offers from the target local hire.
So 60 out of 3,400?
3,949.
Almost 4,000. Yeah.
But we don't know how to count that 4,000.
I understand.
Because that because our understanding of the MOU is that the 5,000 was a net increase rather
Sure.
than replacing people
Sure.
who promoted or retired. So we know that there are that many new people. We don't know whether they are in addition to what was the baseline of employment in the city, or whether they are replacing people that needed to be replaced.
But we do know that you have over 1,000 people, and out of that you got 60.
Yeah.
Correct, right.
Okay.
Well, we have 1,400.
Yeah.
Right, 1,400, and we got 60, and there were almost 4,000 new hires.
Right.
Or there were 4,000 hires.
Right.
Okay, so it would be good to get a picture of the proportionality where we can compare apples to apples. So, is it that we picked up 2 tree surgeons from this pool and 10 from somewhere else? I asked that question because I feel like there's a lot of cross-traffic that frankly concerns me. So I talk to departments all the time. I actually have done what you've described in going and encouraging people and asking them to participate in this and take a hard look at this. And what I've gotten from some departments is, I already have my own disadvantaged worker program. I do X, 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 and X, and I've been doing that for years, and I'm continuing to do that, which is fine. It doesn't seem like there's any reason why that can't be folded into that. Also, I know my office has done programming with sanitation where we were asked to recruit people to apply for not permanent positions, they were temporary positions, but we did that, and it was like 50 people came, and they gave out a handful of jobs from that. But I didn't get that was a part of this. Right, so I don't.
It was not.
So it would be good to know, how we're
If you hadn't helped, they wouldn't have
of
gotten anybody from the disadvantaged communities.
Right, and that was because I asked them about this program, and they said, "Oh, by the way, we're doing this. Can you help us get people?" And so it's again, I think bringing it together so that we're singing on the same note.
If they are doing temporary positions, they wouldn't come to us.
Right.
Because our program is designed to not hire someone for training unless there's an actual position at the end of the training that's available,
Gotcha.
that's full-time.
Okay.
Okay? And we do that because in the past, a lot of people have sort of washed through the system to never, ever get real jobs.
Right.
And we made an early decision in the working group that we didn't want to be doing that again. That disappoints people pretty heavily.
That makes sense. So that brings me to my next question. So just to think about a second for the experience of the applicant, because another thing we've been doing is talking to people who apply for city jobs in general, and then also people who go through this process. I can tell you that's another area of concern for me. Talk to any number of people who say, "Oh yeah, I applied for a city job and I took a test and I randomly heard something 3 years later." And of course I had moved on with my life. I didn't even think.
Many will never hear.
Right. Or they'll never hear anything, which, I think most people take as a no, but, it would be nice to know.
Well, the problem is that when let's say we open up a clerical position through the regular civil service system, how many applicants might get if you open up?
Thousands.
Thousands.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what happens is that people do pretty well on the test, but if they don't get up to that rule of 5, they're never going to get a call in their lifetime.
Right.
And so what has happened is that a lot of people who prepare clerical workers, let's take Faye Washington's YWCA program, which is really excellent, and the airport now is hiring lots of those folks from her program. But so what do? They tell them not to take the civil service exam in Los Angeles because you'll never get hired.
Wow.
Okay. So a lot of them find private sector positions for them when they do these kinds of programs because with thousands of people applying for a position,
Right.
thousands taking the test, not only does it take a long time, but your chances of getting high enough to ever even get an interview are very small.
And just as a general operating procedure, this is, I guess, a question for personnel. Do people get an email saying there's 5,000 people and you scored?
Not for this program. This program, they get emails. They emailed a few times. They emailed letting them know that they applied. Okay, so there's a receipt for their application. We also have an email sent out to them that their application was approved. And then if they are randomly selected, they'll receive another email from personnel indicating that they were randomly selected. In addition to that, though, we've been trying to communicate with them. So we did have an LAUSD bus operator program open up.
Yes.
So we sent that out to all the applicants in the pool as a benefit. Additionally, we sent out a career fair flyer for June 20th, which was distributed to all applicants, encouraging them to take advantage of opportunities while they're waiting. So we're trying to keep an open communication with these individuals, letting them know of not only opportunities in the city and where they're at in the process, but as well as other opportunities as they may arise outside of the city too.
So is there a systematic way of marketing the workers to especially city contractors? Because we've been writing some pretty big contracts that have a lot of entry-level work in them, like rubbish removal. Do we? Yeah, I mean that. If there's something we can do to help formalize that.
Yeah.
Because I would hate to see all this work being done with workers on both sides of it. All this work being done and not being taken advantage of by people who are hiring. And two, we want the workers to have a good experience. Even if that experience is you came close but you didn't make it,
right.
That is better than just, sort of your efforts disappearing into the ether.
Well, almost a third of our applicants have been called to an interview.
Oh, that's great. Oh, that's a good number.
Almost a third. And it is because of that we didn't open it up more widely, because we think if people are getting called for interviews, even when they don't get selected, they go back into the pool, but they know that something is happening. The hardest part is that this could take for some people years before they even get called, and that's our anxiety is about trying to make it that you're likely to get called, not that you're unlikely to get called. We don't want this to be another Section 8 process. You get on the list and you never get a Section 8 voucher. You get on the list and you never get called. We don't want that experience. So that's why we've been hesitant to make it really widely open, publicized, because if you do that and then you don't have any jobs, what you've done is set up people to be discouraged again. So for us, the bottom line is always the same. If we've got jobs, we've got people to fill them.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I think I would strongly suggest that the motion that I guess we're talking about amending or changing today, that we ask for a report back within 60 days in writing and then in person in 90 days. Because I just worry if we wait 90 days and people show up and it hasn't been done, then we're at Thanksgiving and we've lost this half of the year.
No, I think that's great. So, any other comments, questions? So, we'll receive and file this item. We will ask for a written report back in 60 days and a personal report back in 90. And we will also suggest that Herb Weston and myself write a letter to department heads encouraging people to participate in the program, and that we follow up a couple months later and ask the mayor to do something similar.
And please feel free to include, if you would like to, the offer of us to come and meet with them to better explain how to access the program.
I think that would be great. In fact, we'll coordinate with you on what goes into that letter.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you so much.
We will do all of that without objection. And I don't believe, have any other business before us, and so we are adjourned.